I want to welcome you guys to the last of our week of informational meetings. This is Northwest District Fisheries Information Meeting. My name is Joe Rydell. I'm the Northwest District Fisheries Manager. Um, just a couple housekeeping things tonight. If you've been on some of our other meetings throughout the week, you're pretty familiar with the layout of how these go. We will be taking questions throughout the entire presentation. If you want to have a question, we encourage you to ask a question if you have one and put it into our chat system. They're going to be compiled and we'll get everything answered at the end of the talk. We have about a 30-minute presentation for you tonight, and then we'll have plenty of time here to answer all of your questions. If we can't get to all of them, we'll reach out to you through emails at the end. So encourage participation. Look forward to having a good information meeting. As we get started here, I also want to acknowledge that we do have one of our commissioners on tonight. Commissioner Mossman's joined us, so welcome, as well as several of our fisheries staff or our game park staff across the state. So it's like we have about 41 attendees, so it's going to be a pretty good meeting. If you've been on to some of our other meetings, this has kind of been a big topic across all of them this year, but it really impacts the Northwest District. A big change we did this year, as you can tell, our Northwest District was about a third of the state. We had an opportunity this year with one of a retirement to move some positions around. And with that, we were able to create a North Central District. It really split the Northwest District up into two smaller districts, but we also added a little bit out of that Northeast District into it. But what this did is we were able to create a new North Central District, which was kind of the historic, what we had in the past was a sixth district within our fisheries management section. But we're going to house this new one out of Valentine. That allows us to have two management biologist employees up out of the Valentine area to have better coverage for that area, as well as give some additional help to that Valentine hatchery that we have up there. And we'll learn a little bit more about that here coming up. So it really isn't going to be the Northwest District Fisheries Information Meeting. We're going to combine and have a joint one this year with the Northwest and new North Central District. In the coming years, if we continue with the same profile, we'll probably end up having 6 public meetings rather than just the 5. To start off, I want to introduce our staff. Like I said, my name is Joe Rydell. I'm the Northwest District Fish Manager out of Alliance. I have with me tonight here, sitting next to me, is Max Monfort. Max is our new fish biologist, has been on for about 7 months now. He comes to us from Wisconsin. We're happy to have him. If you've been on some of the other meetings throughout the week, you notice they kind of have a larger staff. For the Northwest, we're down to 2. So it's just me and Max for this area. We used to have Zach and Valentine as part of our staff, but he has been promoted to our North Central District Manager. And I'm going to turn it over to Zach at this time and let him kind of introduce himself a little bit more and talk about his new area.
All right, trying to control the screen, trying to advance it. All right. I'm Zach Brashears. I'm the new North Central District Manager. Thanks, Joe, for introducing me. Hopefully, we will be hiring a new biologist here pretty soon, probably within the next few weeks or month. The job actually just closed yesterday, so hopefully, we got some good applicants. I can get another body up here to help me with some of the North Central District activities up here. But I've been pretty lucky working here out of the Valentine Hatchery. 3 super great guys here, been helping me a lot with my surveys as well as brood collections across the portion of the district. We have Derek Schacht, our fish production manager here. He's going to talk here in a little bit about our new RAS building. We have Logan Jenkins, the fish culturist supervisor, and Cole Brackage. our fish production biologist one. So they've been a great help for me up here in the North Central, and appreciate their willingness to pitch in. The first thing I'm going to talk about tonight is a little bit about our aquatic invasive species. In the Northwest District, we've been hiring temporary staff all over the state to try to combat and prevent invasive species coming into Nebraska or spreading. We actually hired Janae Slilba and Brooke Strotman last year. Most of their job was to do watercraft inspections across the district. We mainly had them working Merritt, Big Alkali, Minotaur, and Box Butte last year. They were also helped Chris Starr and Jenna with some of the aquatic vegetation sampling across the district. And then we got them to help with some of our surveys, especially our aquatic invasive species, such as our common carp surveys across the district. It's kind of hard to see, pretty small, but these two were able to perform a little over 1,200 watercraft inspections last year at these 4 lakes. You can see in the top left. That was pretty impressive for these two running around. But if you see in the next column, we had about 37 of our boats out of the 1,200 that were not clean, drained, dry that they encountered. This was kind of alarming to me. Especially with zebra mussels in the Missouri River and around in other states. We don't really want to see them spread around, so we really promote the clean, drain, dry throughout the district. Mussel detections were 0, which was a good thing. And then what was kind of surprising to me, if you look at our out-of-state watercraft, about 10% of our watercraft come from out of state. And if you look at the map, it's kind of hard to see. It's pretty small. The yellow dots were anglers that or watercraft that came from out of state to Merritt Reservoir. So we had a lot of watercraft coming out of South Dakota and Kansas to fish Merritt. And then if you look at the blue dots, a lot of these blue dots were coming to Minotaur to fish out of Colorado and Wyoming. So we just really want to promote the clean, drain, dry. Try to clean and drain and dry your boat as much as possible before entering another water body. Not only are we concerned about zebra mussels, but a big thing we've been dealing with in the Northwest District is invasive vegetation with some of our lakes. I'm pretty concerned about this. If anybody's been to the Sandhill Lakes, you know they're shallow, very heavily vegetated. And if we get one of these invasive species to take off in there, it'll make fishing pretty much impossible. We have curly leaf pondweed at Merritt, Box Butte, and Smith Lake WMA, which was treated in 2025 and 2026. So hopefully we'll get that knocked down there. And then we have Eurasian water milfoil at Box Butte and Cottonwood SRA. And then Cottonwood SRA, I didn't put it on there, but it was also treated in 2025, and Fort Robinson was treated in 2025. So we'll try to get Chris Starr and Jenna back out here and our technicians to try to look at those, see if we knock them back, see if hopefully we can eliminate them. And then Box Butte also has brittle naiad. So just making sure our anglers are aware of these things. I want to put a plug out there too. We have 3 temporary jobs open right now, a 3-month AIS position at Valentine, a 3-month in Alliance, and also a 7-month in Alliance. So if you know anybody that's interested, send them our way and we'll try to get them a job to help out for the summer. Now we're going to jump into a little bit of our fisheries projects and updates throughout the district. The first one I was going to talk about was a cedar tree project at Merritt Reservoir. We have a big project going on this year with our wildlife division, mainly our private lands wildlife and our public, but they're removing the unwanted cedar trees around Merritt, or the invasive cedar trees around Merritt Reservoir. So we decided to jump on board and try to utilize some of these cedar trees for some habitat work at Merritt Reservoir and also Big Alkali. So we teamed up with Parks Division, Wildlife Division, our Fish Production Division, and some other fisheries guys, and we were able to sink about 450 cedar tree piles at Merritt Reservoir. There's about 18 brush piles scattered throughout the reservoir, mainly up the Boardman arms, snake arms, and powderhorn arms of the lake. These tree piles are about 15 to 25 trees, You can see it was kind of tough placing them, but this is how they're sitting in the bottom of the lake right now. We tried putting most of these piles in about 15 to 25 foot of water, just to try to prevent our irrigation drawdown from having them reach the surface. So hopefully this will benefit anglers in the future. The coordinates of these piles can be found at that website address right down there at the bottom. So feel free to jump on our Game and Parks website under Merit and look at our brush piles scattered throughout the reservoir. So um, we sunk about 450 trees. It was a lot of work. I know there's a lot more out there, but we decided we were going to try to sink some in big alkali. So we hauled some of these trees that they were cutting down at Merritt and hauled them over to big alkali, but we were only able to sink one brush pile at big alkali. These trees were a little large and some of them were sticking a little bit out of the water. So some concerns became people being able to ski and tube out there. So we only have one pile of trees out of big alkali. And with that, I will turn it over to Derek to talk a little bit about our new RAS building here in Valentine. Derek Shack here, fishery hatchery manager here at Valentine. Just letting you guys know that building is underway for our recirculating aquaculture system. The building is going to be about 160 foot by 60 foot. It'll have 6 different systems with 25 different tanks. We're going to be utilizing a moving bed bioreactor to recirculate the water and grow the fish. Preliminary estimates, we're looking at 4 larval systems and 2 grow out systems for fingerling and advanced production, up to 250 to 350,000 fish, about 50,000 pounds total is what we're hoping for. We'll be doing everything from northern pike, muskie, walleye, catfish, white bass, wipers, bass, bluegill, and walleye and trout. With that, if you have any questions, feel free to call me at the office here at 376-2244. All right, thank you. Back to Zach. I think with that, I turn it over to Joe for a little more update on some of our projects we have going throughout the district.
Thanks, Zach. Well, it wouldn't be a fisheries information meeting if I didn't give a little bit of an update on the Fry and Avocet boat ramp project. I just wanted to highlight this one. This was completed in 2025. This is a really popular project. I've heard about Western inflation on some of our projects costing a little more than they do back east, but maybe the timeline's a little bit longer too, as we've been working on this one for probably 3 to 4 years trying to get this project up and going. But this was a great project. I just really wanted to highlight a little bit more tonight in our presentation, as it didn't get completed till after our fishing season was wrapped up last year. But this picture here kind of shows what our access site at Fry Lake was before the project. And we were able to hire a local contractor to come out. And one of the challenges we have with sandhill lakes is that these lakes can fluctuate. They're pretty shallow. They usually have a shallow taper, but they can fluctuate a lot in water elevation from year to year. And it's hard to determine what the good depth is. The slope is real shallow. It's hard getting a spot that you can push a ramp in. So we decided to use these peninsula type access sites to get out into the water a little bit, get that depth right. And then we poured some concrete boat ramps. Here's a couple pictures here, just kind of showing our final project. Like I said, this happened towards the end of the year. We got these final wrap-up pictures about the time the lake first froze over, kind of late November, our first ice season of the year. Besides the concrete boat ramp, which turned out great, we have an ADA access pad. This is an ADA accessible boat ramp. We got a new vault toilet and then a resurfaced parking area. We had to use The hill on the south side of the lake is our main fill for both this project and Avocet, since Avocet's pretty flat. So we took a lot of material out, and this just kind of shows it reseeded. But once this grass grows, this is going to be a good overflow area and add some camping opportunities to the Fry WMA. This area will also get a service pier, which we didn't get put in last year. But we are planning on putting the piers in now that our chance of ice is pretty limited. I think we're going to get those put in next week on our local WMAs. The other one we wrapped up last year was Avocet boat ramp. As you can see here, one of the challenges is these really shallow lakes have a big shallow perimeter of cattails. Avocet really didn't have much of a boat ramp towards the west end of the lake, which is even shallower than this access site. Anglers are trying to drop boats in off the shore, but it was really tough to get in, pretty shallow. So we decided that this is our best location with access to a little bit deeper water to put in an access point. And similar to Fry, this is our completed boat ramp. We use that peninsula style to get out towards that little bit deeper water. I know this is one site that we had a lot of comments about wanting to keep this as a kayak only or a hand launch only type location. But this will serve some larger boats, especially in the springtime. But as the summer comes on, these do vegetate, and this lake is really only about 3 to 4 foot max depth. So I don't see a lot of big boats being able to use it throughout the late in the summer. So it will still be pretty much a kayak or hand launch location for most of the year, but this will benefit a lot of anglers and get us onto another one of our quality fisheries. Moving into some of our 2026 projects, we're going to be pretty busy up here this year. One of our big projects we're going to work on is out at Smith Lake WMA, between Lakeside and Rushville off Highway 250. This is one of our better sandhill lakes. It's actually not even a sandhill lake. It's actually a little bit of a reservoir that acts like a sandhill lake on Pine Creek. As with a lot of our sandhill lakes, we have a lot of limited bank access, and access is going to be a big part of this project, as we'll highlight as we go through it. So Smith Lake actually has a pretty good trail system going around the lake to get you to the water. But as far as getting out on the water, it's pretty limited. This project is going to concentrate on 3 of the 4 access points. I'll go through each one of these individually, just kind of highlight what we're going to be doing on there. Looking at our boat ramp area, the first thing we're looking at is we're going to put in some jetty style access points. We're going to do some dredging and excavation. These shallow sandhill lakes can vegetate pretty heavily, and this is one that we're treating for curlyleaf pondweed, but that curlyleaf pondweed has taken over this lake almost entirely, making it unfishable. Even if we don't get the curlyleaf killed back and it starts to come back, this excavation will give us some fishing areas that won't vegetate as heavily right around our access site. So even with the dense vegetation that they can get, we'll still have some fishable water. This earthen pier to the left here, it's going to be kind of similar to what we see out at Merritt Reservoir with the breakwater, where it's a riprap base with a gravel top on top of it to get you out to the edge. But we're also looking at putting in a handicap roll-in style fishing pier that's going to be handicap accessible. So, even if you have kids or somebody who can't get out there, maybe some elderly that can't get out to the water as easily on these earthen piers, we're going to have an access site there that you can get out and fish a sandhill lake, which is pretty rare across the state. Moving to the south side of the lake, this is kind of more of our camping area, but we're going to do some excavation, trying to get us a little bit of that deeper water close to shore. We'll have several of these little earthen bump out nodes, and then adding some gravel spawning habitat along the edges of those too, trying to enhance our bluegill and largemouth bass spawning opportunities. Over near the highway, this is one area that we get a lot of ice push off with our strong northwest winds. We've seen a lot of bank erosion along this side. Even the playground area, we've had to remove this out with this project coming on. We've already lost most of the shoreline along that swing set and playground set. And it was actually hanging out in the water when we removed it. So, part of this is going to be some bank stabilization with a riprap along there, as well as another earthen fishing node with some excavation and some spawning habitat. As I mentioned, this lake is actually a small reservoir that functions like a sandhill lake. So part of this project is going to be to replace our outlet structure. We're not going to lose the fishery with this, but we are starting to draw the lake down for this project. They'll be doing a kind of a coffer dam around this to hold the water back so we don't lose the fishery that we're trying to rebuild um, as they replace that outlet structure. So if you're out there this spring, you might start seeing some reduced water and some a little bit temporary closures until we get this project complete. Moving on, another one of our big projects that's been going on for a little bit here is up on Fort Robinson. It's our Carter P Dam removal project and doing some improvements on Soldier Creek. Carter P Johnson was reclassified as a high hazard dam, which required us to make some changes to the dam, or we had to make that dam get rid of that dam. Um, we chose to decommission that dam, tear it out in order to comply with that dam safety. So this is a huge project that we got going on. It's actually going to be looking at four different sites along the Soldier Creek. Sites one and two are mostly access improvements and doing some stream restoration and habitat work within the stream. And then Carter P. Johnson will be removing that dam, restructuring, regrading, trying to stop the head cut through that section of the stream and bring it back to a natural, more natural type stream habitat. And then downstream, we're going to be working on Crazy Horse Dam, which is still part of the old Fort Robinson Aquatic Habitat Plan to rehab that pond and create an additional fishery. We hired Three Oaks Construction Company. They're out of North Sioux City, South Dakota. They were able to get in and they've hit the ground running. We've had good weather this year and they've started up on Access Site 1. Uh, as you can see here, they've bypassed the current stream so they can work in the dry, well, semi-dry. Um, but the new project for the habitat work includes a lot of stream meanders, adding a lot of in-stream habitat and pool habitat. Um, they've hauled a lot of wood and timber in there, making some really good progress. Uh, we had a little bit of a hiccup with funding, so this is kind of where we decided to start spending some aquatic habitat funding while we waited for one of our federal grants to come in. Um, but as soon as that grant came in, we were able to move back down to Carter B. Johnson and start that dam removal so we can comply with that dam safety program. Here's just a couple pictures of showing you some of the work we've started at Carter B. As you can see in the top left part of this, the dam has been removed and resloped. The outlet structure has been removed. There's a lot of fill that had to come out of this lake in order to regrade it back into a floodplain. Um, I believe the contractor mentioned something around 81,000 cubic yards of sediment they still had to remove out of the upper end. Anytime you have a dam or anything on a stream, it loads up a lot of silt and stuff behind. And when you remove that, you get a big head cut through there as that stream tries to erode and catch back up. So we actually have to rehabitat this entire stretch of stream for quite a ways both above and below to catch up with that head cut. So this will be a new engineer designed uh, sinuosity within this area. It'll get a lot of that same in-stream habitat structures that you saw on Site 1. Right now, they're still in the process of doing a lot of the excavation and moving that silt around, getting ready for those in-stream habitat structures. Like I said, the last part of this project is going to be moving downstream and doing a rehab on Crazy Horse Pond. One concern we had with this project was if we remove Carter P as our sediment basin, are we going to get a big load of sediment coming down into Crazy Horse during a flood? We chose to uh, try to alter this by creating an off-channel reservoir out of this. So we're going to bypass Soldier Creek around uh, Crazy Horse rather than flowing through it as it did in the past. and use a diversion structure in order to try to limit some of that sediment coming in. This new channel will be similar to that site one. We see a lot of that habitat structures through there. And then Crazy Horse Pond will be kind of a hike-in destination from the Carpi access site. And it'll be rehabbed. It'll be excavated out. We'll get in pond habitat work and some stream and some pond access structures. It'll be a lot similar if you've been out to Fort Robb to what our other ponds have turned out. So really excited to see this project kind of finalize up and come through. Another big project up in the Fort Robb area or Crawford area is working on a couple of our national grassland ponds on the Ogallala National Grassland. Um, the U.S. Forest Service had a grant for about $1.1 million to rehab both Agate Reservoir on the top and Boardgate Reservoir down here on the bottom. And they don't have the expertise that Game and Parks does. So we were able to funnel these funds through our Aquatic Habitat Program. And we're even going to add a little bit of money to it to try to enhance these projects a little bit further for anglers. Looking at Agate Reservoir, some of the goals for this project. Um, these have always been water sources for cattle, and cattle are kind of one of the main things that have degraded this over time. So one of our top goals is to fence out the cattle with a new infrastructure. In order to do this, we have to supply some new water sources for the cattle. There is an active pipeline of water that goes through the grasslands. We're going to tie into that pipeline with some new water tanks. We're going to install some principal outlet structures, some principal spillways in both these ponds. They don't have one in the past. They kind of just fill up and then flow through that emergency spillway. So having one of those structures maybe will help out with flow during floods. But we're also going to redesign those emergency spillways to prevent some future erosions like we've seen here at Agate in the past. As with a lot of our aquatic habitat programs or projects, we're going to try to do some angler access features to it. We're going to put in kind of a little rock kick out earthen node for Agate Reservoir as well as a kayak launch. These aren't very big ponds, so we're not looking at boat access to them. But with popularity of kayaks, especially in this gumbo country, we want to make it a little bit easier for guys to get kayaks in there and utilize these resources. Water levels can be kind of challenging in some of those areas, especially during drought years like we're at right now. So we're going to do some excavation, trying to hold more capacity in these ponds too. Excavation's pretty expensive, uh, especially on this limited budget. So we're kind of doing more select excavation kind of around our access structures, um, trying to get the best bang for our buck out of it. Here's our look at our plans for Boardgate Reservoir. I'm not going to go through everything because our goals are pretty much exactly the same as what we're doing for Agate. So, fencing out cattle, putting a new primary principal spillway in, redesigning that emergency spillway, doing excavation, and then angler access features. The last project that I want to talk about tonight, is kind of how you find us. If you're coming through Alliance anytime soon, you notice that we got kind of a new structure going on where our old office was. The old office is tore down. We hired Fuller Constructions in the process of giving us a little bit of a facelift. The new building's not a lot bigger than the old one, but our office space is more organized in there for the personnel that we have out of the Northwest District. But if you're trying to find us, we do have a temporary office in Alliance. We're located on the west side of town right now at 1317 West 3rd Street. Um, if you're not able to find that on Google Maps, it might be a little bit easier to find it if you search for Sam and Louie's or Verizon. We're kind of right in the middle in the strip mall on the west side of town. Kind of as was mentioned earlier, at some of our previous uh, public information meetings, we encourage you to stop in the office and visit with us if you have any questions. Give us a call. We'll have our contact information at the end. But we look forward to visiting with the anglers, answering questions. kind of being available for the public and letting you know what's going on. So, but with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Max. Let him talk to us a little bit about some of our fish sampling and some of our changes we have going on here for 2026.
Yeah, so just right off the bat, kind of talking about some new regulation changes within the Northwest District, but now the North Central District will involve Pelican Lake, the muskie and tiger muskie regulation. So the previous regulation, there was no minimum length limit, the 3 fish bag limit, and possession limit, and only one fish over 34 inches. The new regulation for 2026 is the statewide regulations where there's a minimum length limit of 40 inches, a bag limit of one, and a possession limit of two. Furthermore, like some of the other districts have been talking about this past week, is the fishing forecast. The fishing forecast just kind of highlights some of our sampling that we've done in previous years, whether that be gill nets, frame nets, or electrofishing, and kind of rank them by how many fish we catch. So for our district, North Central and Northwest, they're all located. Some of those lakes are located in this document as well. But if you're looking for a more of an in-depth detail or in-depth report, not only for past years like in 2025, but also 10 years prior, you can come to this fish sampling report page on the Game and Parks website, and you can kind of see some of our lakes that we have reports for. Additionally, for our top picks between the Northwest and North Central District, Walleye, Lake Winters Creek, Merritt Reservoir, Box Butte Reservoir. These three reservoirs are actually pretty high in catch per unit effort within the state. Saugai, Big Alkali, Willow Lake, WMA, Rat and Beaver Lake, and Whitney Lake all are really good lakes and reservoirs for Saugai. Whitney Lake will not be found on the fishing forecast just because we weren't able to sample it this year due to low water. And then again, looking at some of our panfish species like bluegill, Box Butte Reservoir, Smith Lake, located on the Crescent Lake National Wildlife Refuge, as well as Island Lake on the National Wildlife Refuge. Crappie, Cozad Lake, also known as South Pine WMA, Smith Lake, Home Valley Lake, Box Butte, as well as Blue Lake, and then Yellow Perch, some of the lakes up in the Crescent Lake National Wildlife Refuge, and then some lakes in the Valentine Refuge. Largemouth bass, specifically within the Northwest District, would be Avocet and Fry, those two lakes that Joe just talked about regarding those access projects. Smallmouth bass, we don't really have many robust populations within the North Central and Northwest districts, but Lake Minnetonka and Merritt reservoirs would be pretty good bets. And then followed by muskie and northern pike. Muskie can be found in Merritt Reservoir as well as Cottonwood Steverson, and then northern pike found in Box Butte Reservoir, West Long Lake, and Hackberry Lake. So just kind of overview on some of our fish stocking that we have proposed for the Northwest and North Central. These fish range from fry to extender fingerlings, as well as even put and take size trout up to 12 inches. So across our two districts, we're proposing to stock nearly 2.6 million fish between our lakes, reservoirs, and streams. Additionally, the North Central District is going to be having an Ask a Biologist event. This is just an informal time to have a conversation with biologists as well as district managers and have conversations about your concerns, what you enjoy about the district, fish species you like to pursue. And this is going to happen August 9th at Lang Lake here in Alliance from 5 to 8 in Mountain Time. There isn't an event scheduled for the North Central District quite yet, but be on the lookout for that on the Game and Parks website. And with that, I guess if anyone has any questions, feel free to use that chat feature. But otherwise, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us, whether that be stopping into the office here in Alliance or giving us a phone call or email.
With that, we'll turn it over to Jordan Cat. He's been kind of following our chat for the night. and we'll be happy to answer any questions we came up with for the night. What do you got, Jordan?
All right, thanks, guys. Yeah, we got some questions coming in. First one having to do with sandhill lakes and some regulations on panfish. Any thoughts of using total catch and release on panfish and some sandhill lakes? What are your thoughts on that, Joe?
I don't think we'd look at quite total catch and release. Our public sandhill lakes are, they're pretty popular with anglers, especially ice fishermen. Some of the ones we're trying to monitor for more quality fisheries. We're doing some more restrictive regulations that we'll kind of monitor and evaluate for a while. There are a lot of private sandhill lakes that are a lot less fished at the time. Um, that I mean, that might be a better opportunity to evaluate some of those if those landowners are interested in catch and release. But for our public waters, we don't want to limit it quite that far yet.
Couple questions about Smith Lake. You spent some time talking about the project there. When do you think that'll begin?
Well, we have a pre-construction meeting starting next week, so I'm really hoping it kicks off here sometime this spring. You may see some closures to the area, depends on where they decide to start at. We have tried drawing it down already, getting in preparation. Like I said in the presentation, that we're not going to drain it for excavation, but we are drawing it down a little bit so we can get out to some of those deeper areas. We're not going to lose any of the fishery that we're already rebuilding in it.
Okay. That leads right into the next question. So it had some winter kill a few years ago. We had pretty extensive winter kill across the sandhill. So how is it recovering from the winter kill, just overall, and then also specifically with the northern pike population?
Sure. So, we lost the majority of our game fish out of Smith Lake. We didn't lose all the perch, but we pretty much lost all the bluegill and all the largemouth bass. Northern pike were able to survive, and in the void of other game fish, even though we restocked right away the first year, the pike got off a really big reproduction. Actually, we saw two back-to-back big year classes of pike come through, and we're sitting at a really high density last spring. We think it was the high density of pike that the reason why we weren't seeing a lot of success with our stockings. This year we're into our third stocking of yellow perch, bluegill, and largemouth bass for the lake. We did get in there last week to do a survey, and we are seeing some yellow perch. We did catch a couple bluegill. They were pushing almost 7 inches already. But it appears we have a pretty good year class of crappies coming on, which is one of the things Smith has been known for in the past is a really good crappie lake. So that one's coming on, and hopefully we can get that back up and going. As far as the northern pike go, we did see some quality fish. I think our biggest fish were in the low 30s. Um, but our density, we did do some removal last year on those pike, trying to reduce that abundance so that we can get some of these other game fish up and established again. So our density, we did remove about 900 last year out of Smith Lake. They got transferred to the Valentine Refuge, and I think some of them went down to one of Sean's I-80 lakes down by North Platte, trying to help out some of our other districts. But we still have a pretty healthy population of pike in there, and some quality fish. So come on out and utilize that pike fishery.
All right. Thanks, Joe. I'll give you a chance to catch your breath. We'll bring Zach in here, talk a little bit about Valentine and the refuge there. First, do you know, are the docks in? And if not, do you have any idea when they might be pushed in?
Yeah, I just saw that pop up. We were actually out there this morning. The docks are not in as of now. We actually did have a little ice on the edges this morning with our snowstorm, so I expect them. I'll talk to them hopefully here within the next couple of weeks. Try to get their maintenance staff out there, get them in.
Okay. Sticking with the Valentine Refuge, I know you've had some conversations with the staff out there about opening up some more lakes to public access. Can you give everybody an update on where we're at with that?
Okay. Yeah, we've been working with Fish and Wildlife Service staff, mostly Matt Springer, the head of the Fort Niobrara Valentine Complex. And then last year, we were tasked to go out and sample as many lakes as possible to try to give them some ideas of the fish populations in those lakes. So we went out with some electrofishing gear. We were able to sample about 18 of the 27 lakes not open to fishing, just mainly due to access issues, steepness, drought conditions. Lakes were down, getting stuck, that kind of things. We didn't see anything earth shattering in our opinion. We did sample fish in about every lake, some sort of species. Alkalinity was pretty high in a couple of the lakes, so no fish species were present there. Most of the species in the lakes not open to fishing were fathead minnows, black bullheads, green sunfish, common carp, of course, golden shiners, and yellow perch. So no management's ever been done on most of those lakes. So we're really interested in really working with refuge staff to try to open up those to possibly some ice fishing opportunities in the future, and possibly some more management. We think we can possibly do something with some fish stockings and stuff like that. So.
Thanks, Zach. Switching back up to the agate and board gate projects, what kind of fish are in those two reservoirs?
So we actually thought maybe we lost our fisheries during the drought we've had. I did hear some reports from this winter that there are still some fish to be found in some of those, but both reservoirs have largemouth bass, yellow perch, bluegills, and some rock bass.
All right. Um, Down at Oliver, a couple questions about walleye and the growth down there. Can you just touch on the walleye growth in Oliver, and can anything be done to encourage that growth beyond 15 inches?
Sure. It's actually a little bit slower growth rates than we've seen some of our other reservoirs. It seems like it takes those walleye about 3 to 4 years to hit 15 inches, where a lot of our lakes will hit 15 inches in their second to third growing season. The predominant prey base in Oliver is gizzard shad, and we do see a lot of young of the year shad. Those fish are fairly plump and good body condition. Um, Not sure what we can really do to improve those growth rates. We do see my one thought would be to reduce some stocking rates in there, but body condition looks good. We have good abundance. We know we have some natural recruitment that occurs in that reservoir. I think we just got to wait an extra year or two as far as uh, for those fish to hit 15 inches. So fun lake to go fish, catch a lot of fish, sort through a bunch of little ones, but it does grow some better walleye in there.
And while we're on Oliver, have you stocked muskie in there recently?
Well, we've been stocking tiger muskies the last couple of years. Rather than doing pure strain muskies, they're a little bit easier, more available in our hatchery system. We've done some fingerling stockings. Last one fingerling stocking, and we've been stocking some 12-inch fish the last couple of years. So they'll get a stocking of tiger muskies on probably an every other year basis at lower density. Jordan, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Sticking with walleye populations, but switching to a different lake, Cottonwood Steverson, touching on the how those are doing over there.
Sure. Guess that would be in my area. We've been messing around, or for the last 10 years, we were stocking walleye, and then we started doing some saugeye stocking in there. Thought they would take off, such as like Big Alkali and Willow Lake that we got over here, but we weren't really seeing anything good come out of saugeye there. So we went back with walleye. We do see a few every year in our gill nets. We just aren't effectively sampling them because we do hear some very good angler reports, especially through the ice um, during the winter months. People going over to Home Valley and fishing during the day and then hitting that Cottonwood Steverson bite, usually around evening, right at dark. And we've seen some pretty good pictures of walleye, some nice walleye coming out of there. So we'll continue to monitor our stocking efforts there and see what we can do. Common carp populations are really, really bad there. So that's one of our factors affecting a lot of our recruitment of our game fish there. So,
Okay. Um, a little bit of a different type of question. I know we also have muskie in that system as well. Um, and this question has to deal with forward-facing sonar. So first, just what are your opinions on forward-facing sonar? Any surprises with that technology? And have you utilized forward-facing sonar at Cottonwood, Steverson, or other water bodies in your district? Um, you don't have to divulge if you're using it for angling, but maybe for work purposes.
yeah, to be honest with you, I haven't done a lot with forward facing sonar. We've been messing around with a little bit about it. I think it's a very effective tool for finding the fish. You still gotta get them to bite, but I definitely think it'd be interesting in trying to look for muskies at Cottonwood Steverson where they're a bigger fish. Being able to go out and utilize that where we can target them. We've been doing a tagging project at Merritt and Cottonwood Steverson over the last 6 years now. So we're going to continue to do that, trying to look at growth rates and stuff like that. So it might be valuable to use over there to try to target areas where those muskies are in with our electrofishing gear. So
Sure. Um, Switching down south to Crescent Lake and or the Crescent Wildlife Refuge in Blue Lake, are there issues with water quality down there, Joe?
There is. I mean, similar we're seeing at Cottonwood Steverson, Blue Lake and Crescent Lake. We've had pretty high carp populations taken off in there. And as any high carp density in the Sandhill Lake, it declines our water quality. So water clarity is pretty poor. We get some algae blooms in the summertime. There are some decent fish coming on, game fish besides those common carp. We've been trying to manage around them using some gizzard shad stockings to get a pelagic prey base going in there, and seeing some good results with that, especially in Crescent Lake. We kind of started doing the same thing in Blue Lake here, um, because of those positive results in Crescent. But fishing can be tough just because of that poor water quality.
Sure. Quite a few questions about the Soldier Creek Carter P dam removal project. Um, First, are there plans to improve the stream or access to the stream outside of just those four project areas that you listed, Joe?
No, there isn't. These stream projects are really, really expensive. So trying to concentrate those efforts into more of our easily accessible sites, um, is kind of where we focus that project at.
And oh, I'm going to ask for some clarification on this other one because I'm not entirely sure on what the question is. So can you just describe a little bit about what so you gave some pretty good detail about what's going to be done in the stream, but just how anglers can get to that stream.
For Soldier Creek,
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, there's going to be a parking area not far off from the stream edge at those access sites. So, you can get right down to the stream. All those access sites are going to be pretty clear and wide open. You're not going to have a lot of standing timber to deal with. There are some willow plantings for bank stabilization, so they may come on in the future. But we're not dealing with really big water here, so there may be down the road there may be uh, some access troubles, but we will maintain, especially those new improved access sites, will maintain fishability in there for anglers. So.
Sure. Uh, what about the water situation at Walgreen?
I was expecting that one. Walgreens, we're in a pretty good drought year. Um, we've been in a drought for a while, and Walgreens, one of those lakes that it's not on a flowing stream. We're really sandy soils out here, and unless we get just the right conditions, we don't see really any inflow of moisture into Waldron. Um, right now, water levels are about 2 to 3 foot of water out there. We do have some fish stockings planned for the year just in case that we do happen to get the right conditions. But for us to get inflow into Waldron, we really need frozen ground, a heavy spring blizzard, and then a warming snap after it. I actually drove out to Waldron today to see if the snow we had last night was getting us any moisture to the lake, and unfortunately, as dry as we are, as soon as it melts, it just seeps into the ground of that watershed, and we're not seeing anything right now.
Um, Circling back, so you talked about Oliver Reservoir and the stocking and tiger muskies in there. Do you think those will have any effect on the walleye population and improving growth there?
No, I'm not expecting them to really have a big impact onto it. We do have a pretty good amount of gizzard shad that are in there that I think they're going to utilize some of those. We're really hoping that they're an additional predator on the common carp as they bounce back. Oliver has a pretty high density of carp in there. We did see a big fish kill with those carp a couple of years ago. We weren't really able to identify what the cause was, but it was pretty much really selective right towards carp. So we have a good density of carp in there right now that are of smaller size. So getting these bigger aggressive predators in there that can utilize those might help reduce the carp impacts on that water body.
How about the crappie at Whitney? How are they doing?
They're starting to bounce back. We did get in this past year, and surprisingly, we found a fair number of adult crappie, which tells us we didn't lose all of them. I think the biggest crappie we saw was about 13 inches. We've seen both blacks and whites. We've done 2 years of stockings of white crappie in there, trying to get them come back. And I'm expecting to see quite a few of those showing up this year in the spring survey. So we'll know more towards the end of April on that one.
All right. And with that, that's all the questions I have right now. We got a few minutes left, so if anybody has any last minute questions, make sure to post them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm gonna let you guys start to wrap up.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining in again tonight. I know Aaron's mentioned in some of our other uh, presentations for the week that if you know somebody that missed them, these will all be recorded or were all recorded and should get posted on the Game Parks website here probably within the next week, I would guess. But thanks everybody for coming on. Appreciate the time. If you guys have any questions that come up in the meantime, our contact information is here on the screen. Feel free to reach out to us. Stop in the office, come see us, stop and say hi. If we happen to catch you at a boat ramp, we'll be happy to give a few minutes and visit with you and share any information we got.
Yep, I'll ditto Joe on that. Thanks everybody for coming on tonight. Like you said, if you have any questions, you're coming out fishing, feel free to give us a call at those contacts there. We're avid anglers. We're going to try to lead you in the right direction all the time, and tell you where not to go. So just give us a buzz and we'll try to help you out. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just hop on here just real quick. Just had a couple other questions that want to take care of here, get answers out. One person asked about the fish population, our sampling data and our reports that we post online, if those were all up or if there's more to be published. And there'll still be a few more trickling in here. We're hoping we'll have all those up here by middle of March. It's been a real busy winter and spring with some of the additional work that the staff has done across the state, but for the majority of them are up. And then the other question we had dealt with Onyx fish and if it's going to be in Nebraska soon. And I reached out to our kind of our database manager. There's been discussions, and then there's been some data exchanged from us to Onyx, and we have no idea what their timeline is. From this point, that's kind of up to them and where they're at on building that database. So as of now, I guess stay tuned. But nothing else coming in. Thanks Northwest and North Central guys. It was a great meeting, and again, just want to say thanks to everybody who tuned in throughout the whole week. Really appreciate you taking time, and hopefully you learned something. And like I said, if you got questions, reach out to any of the staff across the state or myself, and we'll try to get you the answers you need. With that, we're going to end it, and appreciate you, and hopefully see you all next year.